Imagine you've achieved an important milestone, but instead of feeling proud, you feel like a fraud. Has this ever happened to you? Today, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome, a condition that affects millions of people, from students to successful professionals. But don't worry, because by the end of this video, I'll show you scientifically backed strategies to overcome this fear and start valuing yourself for who you truly are. In this video, we'll explore the roots of imposter syndrome, how it impacts your personal and professional life, and most importantly, how to stop feeling inadequate. So, stay until the end, because I promise that what you'll learn today could change the way you see yourself. Ready to uncover the truth behind those feelings of insecurity? Let's get started. Origin of imposter syndrome. Why do we feel like frauds? Imposter syndrome was identified by psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes in 1978, who noticed that many successful people couldn't internalize their achievements. Despite having objective evidence of their competence, these individuals felt that they didn't deserve their success and that, at any moment, they would be exposed as frauds. This phenomenon has become increasingly common, especially in highly competitive environments like academic or professional settings. This imposter feeling often stems from childhood. Excessive expectations from parents, teachers, or authority figures can cause a person to grow up with constant internal pressure to achieve perfection. While some may achieve success, that same pressure leads them to attribute their accomplishments to luck or external factors, never to their personal ability. Additionally, comparison with others plays a significant role, especially in today's hyper-connected world, where the success of others is just a click away. It's also linked to personality traits. People with a tendency toward perfectionism are more susceptible to this syndrome, as they set nearly impossible standards for themselves. When they don't meet these unrealistic expectations, instead of recognizing the effort they've put in, they tend to focus on what still needs improvement. This reinforces a cycle of self-criticism, fueling the feeling of not being enough. What factors do you think contribute the most to this imposter feeling in your life? The psychological consequences of imposter syndrome on work performance. The impact of imposter syndrome in the workplace can be devastating. Although many people affected by this syndrome reach high levels of professional success, their distorted self-perception prevents them from enjoying their achievements. Instead of feeling motivated and proud, they experience elevated levels of stress, anxiety, and mental exhaustion, often leading to burnout. Constantly feeling inadequate or fearing being found out creates ongoing psychological pressure. One of the main consequences at work is excessive self-demand. Those who suffer from imposter syndrome feel the need to work harder than others to make up for what they believe is a lack of competence. This can lead them to take on more responsibilities than they can handle, avoid delegating tasks, and, as a result, face significant burnout. Moreover, their inability to internally recognize their achievements means that, no matter how hard they work, they never feel it's enough. On the other hand, analysis paralysis is another common trap. People with this syndrome often avoid making important decisions or taking on new challenges out of fear of failure. This constant fear of making mistakes limits their professional growth, as they tend to decline promotions, avoid public speaking, or shy away from leadership roles, directly affecting their development and opportunities. This syndrome can also damage workplace relationships. The lack of confidence in their own abilities can cause people to avoid feedback, preventing them from improving and growing in their roles. Additionally, constant negative self-evaluation may be projected onto others, leading to ongoing comparisons and a feeling of inferiority toward their colleagues. Have you ever felt that your insecurity has limited your opportunities at work or your ability to advance? Social factors that fuel imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome doesn't develop in a vacuum. It is deeply influenced by social factors that shape how we perceive success and competence. One of the key elements is the culture of perfection that prevails in many social and professional environments. From childhood, people are subjected to high external expectations, such as those imposed by the educational system, family, or the media. These expectations can foster a feeling that one is never good enough, fueling the self-perception of being an imposter. In the era of social media, this phenomenon is further intensified. Constant exposure to the perfect lives of others creates a cycle of comparison that is often unrealistic. We see other successes as the result of their natural ability, while we attribute our own achievements to luck or excessive effort. This cognitive dissonance between reality and the perception of others reinforces the idea that we are not competent enough and that, at some point, we'll be found out as frauds. Another significant social factor is the diversity of gender and race in professional environments. Numerous studies have pointed out that women and racial minorities are more likely to experience imposter syndrome, especially in fields where they are underrepresented. Psychologist Valerie Young, author of The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, explains that the feeling of being different or not fitting into certain professional spaces increases the likelihood that these individuals will internalize the syndrome. The lack of role models with whom they can identify also contributes to greater self-criticism and the belief that they don't belong. This social environment contributes to the perpetuation of the syndrome. The pressure to meet external standards, the fear of social judgment, and power dynamics create an ideal breeding ground for this phenomenon to thrive. Have you noticed how social expectations or comparison with others influence your self-perception of success? The role of personal expectations in the perception of self-efficacy. The expectations we place on ourselves play a crucial role in the development of imposter syndrome. In many cases, people with this syndrome not only feel the pressure of external expectations, but they also develop a fierce self-criticism that reinforces the idea that they are never enough. Self-efficacy, which refers to the belief in one's own ability to carry out necessary actions and achieve goals, is compromised when personal expectations are unrealistic or too demanding. Those with perfectionist tendencies often set very high standards for themselves. Every time they achieve something, instead of feeling satisfied, they consider that accomplishment the bare minimum they should have done. This cycle of "it's never enough" diminishes their ability to recognize their own skills and effort. This kind of thinking undermines their self-efficacy, leading them to doubt their abilities at key moments, such as during important presentations, promotions, or critical decisions. Additionally, internal expectations are not only linked to perfectionism but also to how we interpret our failures. People with imposter syndrome tend to magnify any mistake or misstep, using them as proof that they are not capable of success. Even in the face of clear achievements, if they make a small mistake, they feel that all the effort was in vain. This pattern of thinking drives a distorted perception of their abilities, reinforcing the feeling of being an imposter. On the other hand, internal self-demand can be shaped by past experiences. People who have grown up in environments where their achievements were not recognized, or where they were only praised for extraordinary performances, often develop a skewed perception of their value. This fuels a constant search for external approval and a sense of inadequacy when their results aren't perfect, even when they have objectively been successful. What expectations do you feel you place on yourself, and how do you think this affects the way you value your own achievements? Mechanisms to overcome imposter syndrome. Science-based strategies. Overcoming imposter syndrome is not an immediate process, but there are scientifically backed strategies that can help reduce its impact and develop a more balanced self-perception. A key approach is recognizing the syndrome for what it is, a cognitive distortion. Simply identifying that these feelings do not reflect reality can be the first step toward weakening them. As psychologist Pauline Clance, one of the pioneers in studying this phenomenon, says, being aware that it is a limiting belief is crucial to dismantling its power. One of the most effective methods is cognitive restructuring, a technique used in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This technique involves identifying and questioning automatic negative thoughts. Instead of accepting ideas of failure or inadequacy as absolute truths, they are analyzed rationally. For example, if someone thinks, "I only achieved this by luck," they can examine the real evidence that disproves that idea, such as the work and effort they actually put in to achieve that success. Over time, this type of cognitive restructuring helps build a more accurate and positive internal narrative. Another effective strategy is self-compassion. Research by Dr. Kristen Neff has shown that developing a compassionate attitude toward oneself, rather than being extremely self-critical, reduces the stress and anxiety associated with imposter syndrome. Self-compassion involves treating oneself with the same kindness we would offer a friend in times of difficulty, accepting that failure and mistakes are a natural part of being human. This not only lessens the emotional impact of the syndrome but also improves self-efficacy by allowing us to accept our limitations without letting them define us. Lastly, seeking social support is also essential. Openly talking about these feelings with colleagues, friends, or mentors can break the cycle of isolation that often accompanies the syndrome. Many times, by sharing similar experiences, people discover that they are not alone in their insecurities and that even those they admire have felt the same way. Creating a supportive and trusting environment enables individuals to feel more secure when facing challenges and to validate their achievements more effectively. What techniques do you think you could apply in your life to combat these imposter feelings? Imposter syndrome in women, a barrier to professional growth. Imposter syndrome tends to disproportionately affect women, especially in competitive, male-dominated work environments. While this phenomenon is not exclusive to women, several studies indicate that women are more likely to feel that they don't deserve their success, which prevents them from advancing in their careers with the necessary confidence. This gap in self-perception can create invisible barriers that limit the professional development of many talented women. One of the reasons behind this is gender socialization. From an early age, women are taught not to be too ambitious, too confident, or too visible. They are often encouraged to be modest, which reinforces the belief that success can only result from luck or external help, rather than their own efforts or skills. This lack of self-attribution for achievements makes many successful women feel that they will eventually be found out as imposters, affecting their self-esteem and their ability to take on new challenges. The work environment doesn't always facilitate women's ability to overcome this syndrome either. The lack of female role models in leadership and positions of power perpetuates the idea that they don't belong in those spaces. When a woman sees that few people like her hold high positions, she may internalize the idea that she is an exception rather than the norm, fueling her imposter feelings. This is further reinforced by gender discrimination and unconscious biases that still persist in many organizations, creating a hostile environment for women seeking career growth. Additionally, the intersection of gender with other factors like race or social class can exacerbate this phenomenon. Women who belong to racial or socio-economic minorities face double pressure. They must fight against gender stereotypes as well as racial or class stereotypes, which heightens their sense of inadequacy. These women often feel that they must work twice as hard to be seen as competent, contributing to greater self-criticism and burnout. Despite the challenges, more and more women are beginning to speak openly about imposter syndrome, promoting the creation of support networks that help normalize the conversation around these feelings and combat them. Simply sharing experiences with other women in the same situation allows many to realize that their achievements are not due to chance, but to effort and talent. How do you think society and the work environment could improve to help more women feel deserving of their success? Breaking the cycle of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a mental barrier that affects millions of people across all walks of life, but it is possible to break its cycle with the right approach. By recognizing it as a cognitive distortion, we can begin to dismantle the thought patterns that make us feel like we're not good enough. Cognitive restructuring, self-compassion, and social support are science-backed strategies that have proven to be effective in combating this phenomenon. It's important to remember that feelings of insecurity do not define our abilities or the value of our achievements. Both men and women can benefit from an environment that promotes internal validation and equal opportunities while also normalizing conversations about the syndrome. Finally, if we recognize these patterns and work on them, we can begin to build a more positive and realistic mindset that allows us to fully enjoy our successes and continue advancing toward our goals without feeling like imposters in our own lives. Are you ready to apply these changes in your life?